Once upon a time, there was a young man who wanted to become wise. Now, this young man had everything he thought he needed to be wise. He had read every self-help book in the world. He had attended every motivational seminar, and he had followed every piece of advice he could find. Yet, despite all his efforts, he felt empty and lost. One day, he heard about an old sage who lived deep in the mountains. They say this sage was so wise that just being in his presence would fill your heart with enlightenment. So the young man set off on a long journey to find this sage and learn his secrets. After traveling for many days, he finally came across a small hut in the mountains. As he approached the hut, he could sense a feeling of calm and serenity wash over him. He knocked on the door and waited patiently. After a few moments, the door opened, and there stood the old sage. The young man was amazed by the sage's peaceful eyes. He felt drawn to them as if they held the answers to all of life's mysteries. Without hesitation, the young man asked the sage, "I want to become wise. Can you teach me?" The sage smiled mysteriously and replied, "Of course, my child. Come inside." The young man followed the sage into the hut and sat down on a simple wooden stool. The sage poured some water into a cup and handed it to the young man. "Drink this," he said. The young man took the cup and drank the water. It was the most refreshing drink he had ever tasted. The young man asked, "What was that water?" The sage replied, "It was just ordinary water from the mountain stream. But to those who are thirsty, even water can become sweet." The young man thought for a moment. Does that mean that wisdom is just simple things like water that we overlook because we're too busy searching for complex answers? The sage nodded. "You are wise beyond your years, my son. You have understood the first lesson. Now, I will give you the second lesson." The sage went to the corner of the hut and picked up a small stone. He placed the stone in the young man's hand and said, "Hold this stone in your hand for as long as you can." The young man took the stone and felt its rough edges digging into his skin. At first, he tried to ignore the discomfort, but as time passed, he began to feel pain. Unable to bear it any longer, he dropped the stone and exclaimed, "It's too sharp. It hurts." The sage calmly said, "Even great wisdom can be uncomfortable, just as a diamond may be beautiful, but cut yourself on its edges. True wisdom can be sharp and painful. Are you willing to embrace the discomfort for the sake of understanding?" The young man hesitated. "I want to be wise, but I don't want to suffer." The sage replied, "Wisdom is not about avoiding pain, it's about embracing it and learning from it. If you cannot tolerate a little discomfort, how can you handle the complexities of life? Real wisdom lies in finding peace within the storm." The young man thought about the sage's words. He realized that true wisdom meant facing his fears and embracing the unknown. With a newfound determination, he asked the sage, "What should I do?" The sage smiled and said, "Now I will give you the third and final lesson." The sage led the young man to a nearby stream and asked him to look at the flowing water. "Do you see that stream over there? It flows freely and effortlessly. That is how your mind should be. Always keep your mind flowing like a stream, open and free from attachments. Let your thoughts flow through you like the water, without holding on to anything." The young man observed the stream, mesmerized by its natural movement. "But how can I achieve such a calm mind? My thoughts and emotions seem to be all over the place," the sage explained. "Your mind is like a sky filled with clouds. The clouds represent your thoughts and emotions. Just as the sky itself does not change, your true nature is always peaceful. It is the clouds that cover the sky and create disturbances. When you identify with those clouds, you suffer. But when you realize that you are the vast sky, you find inner peace. All you need to do is let the clouds pass." As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the mountain, the young man felt a sense of calmness envelop him. He understood that true wisdom lay in accepting the impermanence of life and finding peace within the ever-changing present moment. The young man thanked the sage for his teachings and prepared to leave. He felt a sense of gratitude for the valuable lessons he had learned. Before he left, the sage handed him a small bag and said, "Take this with you. It will remind you of our time together." The young man looked at the bag and asked, "What's in this bag, master?" The sage replied, "It contains the essence of our lessons. Open it when you feel lost or in need of guidance." The young man carried the bag with him as he began his journey home. Along the way, he reflected on the profound teachings of the sage. The young man walked for several days, his heart filled with gratitude for the time he had spent with the wise old sage. He knew that the lessons he had learned would guide him for the rest of his life. Upon reaching his home, he unpacked the bag, revealing 3 items: a simple cup, a smooth stone, and a twig from the nearby stream. Each item symbolized one of the valuable lessons the sage had taught him. The young man placed these items on his desk, where they became a constant reminder of the wisdom he had gained. As time went on, the young man became known for his wisdom and serenity. People from far and wide sought him out for guidance. Whenever someone came to him with questions, the young man shared the lessons he had learned from the sage, encouraging them to find their own inner wisdom. Years passed, and the young man, now much older, continued to live a life filled with purpose and tranquility. The memories of his time with the sage remained fresh in his mind, and the lessons he had learned served as guiding principles for him and those he helped. And that, dear friends, is the end of the story. Now here's a question for you. What did the young man learn from the sage? Well, he learned 3 important things. First, wisdom can be found in the simplest of things. Sometimes we overlook the obvious because we're too busy searching for complex answers. Second, true wisdom can be uncomfortable. Embracing challenges and learning from them is part of the journey. And third, real wisdom means letting go of attachment and finding peace in the present moment. By practicing acceptance, we can find inner calm amidst life's chaos. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these lessons resonated with you the most, and how can you apply it to your life? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story brought you peace, consider sharing it with someone who might need some soothing words. Thank you for watching, and until next time, may you find moments of tranquility in your day. Sweet dreams.